when you have a certain group of friends, it's like you're scared to live a certain way. But then it's like when you do have friends around you that have the same morals as you, that have the same beliefs as you, that have the same values as you, it's like they encourage you to live a certain way. Even when you feel tempted, you have accountability partners around you. You have people around you that say, girl, do you really want to do this? Hey guys.
Hey y'all.
It's Destiny.
It's Eden.
And welcome back to another episode of God Talks. Today we are going to be talking about how to resist temptation as college students and really just young people in general. We know everyone who's young isn't in college.
Yeah.
But we do go to a school that's kind of has a little bit of a party reputation.
We go to North Carolina A&T, if you don't know.
So it's something that we do have a lot of experience with, and I feel like we've kind of like tested all of these tactics.
Yeah.
And we're speaking out of a lot of experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But like we always like to say, if there's anything you don't agree with, tell us. If there's anything you feel like the Bible doesn't support, tell us. We love to be corrected. You know, we're all doing this walk together. So me and Destiny have pretty different stories when it comes to our journeys with resisting temptation. So, I mean, I guess you can start with yours, because yours is
mine is pretty much straight, simple. I came to college. I would say like that first semester we were kind of wilding out a little bit. Like
as everyone does.
I still never like was as crazy, even as like the average college student, because our parents are pastors, so we went into college knowing like what's wrong. What's right, what's wrong. We never went too far, or I never went too far. But we were still living our college lives, and we were having fun. And I'm not gonna lie, I was telling Eden this a few days ago, like those times when I was being crazy were fun.
They were
fun. But I think I really started to change my mindset whenever I realized that all those things that were fun in the moment were leaving me so empty.
Yeah.
And I felt so empty after we would come home from being out and doing crazy stuff. I would come home and it's like, yeah, it was fun in the moment, but I wake up the next morning and I feel empty and I feel depressed, and I'm trying to figure out why I'm feeling depressed and sad. And it's really because I was taking part in worldly things and things honestly that were gratifying my flesh, and the only thing that gratifying your flesh will leave you is empty.
Yeah.
And so I just came to a point where I was like, I'm sick of feeling empty. I want to have rewards. I want to have highs that last. I don't want my highs to come down. And I realized that the only thing that was giving me that lasting high was really Jesus.
Yeah.
And honestly, like spending time with God, after I would spend time in my word, I would just feel so fulfilled. And so I feel like going into spring semester is when I really decided, like, okay, I'm done.
Spring semester freshman year.
We're juniors now. So this is like 2 years ago, but spring semester freshman year, I was like, I'm done. I really pretty much stopped going to parties. I stopped doing all that crazy stuff. It was just over for me at that point. So
yeah. So me, on the other hand, I will say, because Destiny has her own stories, but I'd say for me, I just always felt like I was a little bit further behind than Destiny, and it took me longer to get the revelation.
And I think I always say, like, we have two different learning styles.
Yeah.
I think she had to go through the things she went through because she is more of a learn through experience type of person.
Yeah.
Whereas I have always been like a scare tactic type person. Scare tactics work on me. So I don't have to experience something to know that I shouldn't do it. For me, it's more of like, you can almost like, you ain't got to tell me twice. Like when my parents told me to clean up my room, I'm cleaning up the room because I don't want to get a whooping. And so that's how like my brain has always worked. Whereas you've always been the one who's kind of like tested the waters a little bit.
I'm just the type of person, I've always been, what's it called? When you're a visual learner, I've always just been I've even like educationally, academically, I've always been the person where like words don't work with me. I always had to see an example. That's just the way I learned. And so in terms of living my life, the way I learned was just learning through experience. And I'd say God just had to show me through experience. I won't say I was crazy. You know, I tended in the past, is that a word? Tended? In the past, I have often said that about myself, where I tend to say I was crazy and wilding out. Looking back, I wasn't. No. I was doing what every other college
still
student
doesn't
was
make it
doing.
right.
Exactly. And a little bit less. But to me, it's just like, it was still against the way I was raised. It was against even what I believed I should be doing as a Christian. And so, yeah, I'd say there was a point where God just wrecked me, and that was like the very end of our spring semester freshman year. At the very end, literally, we were about to go into college. I mean summertime, and God just wrecked me. And I think at that point I decided, okay, I have to stop doing what I'm doing. I have to turn my life around and give my life to God, like fully. And even as a young person, I still understood that giving your life to Jesus required some sort of sacrifice. And I think that's why it took me such a long time to fully make that sacrifice, because even in my immaturity, I understood that giving my life to Jesus was gonna require some sort of sacrifice. You know, I knew that I couldn't have a foot in the world and a foot in the kingdom. I knew I had to go full force into the kingdom. I knew I had to. And so I think there's a point where I just told God, you know, I'm gonna go all in, and I did. And I will say after that, I think there's a point where you realize, oh, the temptation doesn't stop. Oh, your life doesn't just completely, you know, your environment, just because you changed your life doesn't mean, especially when you're in college, I'm telling you, that is one of the hardest, especially because I love my HBCUs. I love my HBCU so bad. I love A&T. But one thing I will say is, like, at HBCUs, it's just a completely different experience, because sin is like so glorified.
And I won't even really put it on HBCUs. It's just the party culture, specifically at our school. We're known for it.
But it tends to be HBCUs.
It does, but it's like at white schools they be doing lines of coke and stuff. So it's like we have different things.
It's true. There's just different things that we do.
It's just like, it's very heavy here. And so anyone who goes to this school knows it's a very difficult battle trying to stay on the straight and narrow while being young out of school like this.
It's really hard, and it's something that me and Destiny really had to learn how to do. Like, God had to teach us how to do it. And so basically going into it, that was a long intro, but going into it, me and Destiny usually just go off the dome or whatever, but I just sat down today and I really wrote some notes on, like, I wrote down 3 steps that have really helped me to stand on my boundaries and stand on what I say I'm going to do with my life. And so first for me is build godly community / rid your life of toxic relationships. And I will say I put this first because to me that is first foremost of the utmost importance. When you really decide to give your life to Jesus and you decide that you're going to turn your whole life around, I'm telling you, that's really usually the first thing that will happen is either you decide to do it yourself or God will just come in and just really wreck your life and like rid your life of the toxic relationships. I'm telling you, that's like usually the first thing to go when you really decide to give your life to God. Because like just personally in our story, I will say me and Destiny, we had a good group of friends. We all grew up together. We all went to the same high school for years. So, and we're still friends with most of those girls. So this is no knock to any of y'all because thank God a lot of them have given their life to Jesus too. Thank God. But yeah, we were just like a regular freshman year friend group, but it was just really toxic, just very toxic. I feel like
a lot of the things, I will say even for me specifically, I've never been a party person. I've never been the type of person to want to go out and do those type of things, but because my friends were doing it, it's like I kind of have to, because otherwise I'm just in the room by myself.
Exactly.
So if I want to be around people, I kind of have to do what they're doing. And so that's how it felt in that semester.
I would say for me, like even how I was saying earlier, there was a point where I knew I had to switch my life up in order to really step into this life fully with God. I think that was a thing that held me back almost the biggest factor that held me back, because I knew what my friends wanted to do, and I knew that I would possibly be judged. I knew that I would possibly be considered lame. Like, that's a very real thing, is a lot of people don't, especially in college, they don't want to give their life to God because they don't want to be seen as lame. They don't want to be seen as a party pooper. They don't want to be seen as that girl that just sits in the room. And now I know that you don't have to just sit in the room to stand on your morals and values, but that's a whole nother conversation. It was something we may touch on later if we have time. But that was something that really held me back. Like I said, I wanted to step into this, but I was like, okay, are they gonna look at me differently? Are they gonna judge me? And one thing that happened was God just rid our lives of those relationships. There was a point where I don't remember if I prayed for it or not, because it was getting to a point where those relationships just had really grown toxic. And even aside from just giving our lives to God, it was just I gotta get out of this. And God did it for us. It was just situation after situation, friend after friend left, and at the beginning of our sophomore year we found ourselves completely like lonely.
It was pretty much just me and her.
It was just me and her. And I always say, like, I don't know what I would have done. I don't know what either of us would have done without each other. I'm sorry for people who don't have a twin.
No, actually.
But if you don't have a twin, God will still keep you. So don't be afraid. But looking back, that was a time that we absolutely had to go through. Both of us personally, because even though I say we did have each other, when you're a twin, you only really understand this if you're a twin, but when you're a twin, even when it's just us two, you still feel like you're by yourself. It's almost like we're just like extensions of each other, even though we're two separate people. But it's like when I'm with her, I don't feel like I have company. I feel like I'm just kind of by myself. So we still both felt very lonely. But aside from that, that was a time that we really had to go through, because it's like, now when God takes you out of the world, he has to like literally, it's like you have to detox. It's like he has to rid your life of all of these toxic mindsets and toxic behaviors. And it literally has to be a time of solidarity. It has to be a time of solitude. It has, what do people call it? It's like the isolation. Everybody talks about it.
I would love to do another video on that, because I think that's something that our generation has taken too far.
Definitely.
Is that some of us are putting ourselves in our own isolation periods, and some of us refuse to come out of isolation.
Definitely.
In this like overly holy and righteous mindset.
But as we said, I think we're gonna make another separate video on isolation, so we'll delve way deeper into this. But yeah, that time, just we needed that time. But then it's like we looked up, both of us, and it's like at the end of our the fall semester of our sophomore year, it's like we looked up and just like all these amazing, beautiful women had came into our lives. It was just like God did a 180 in our friendships. Like and these are still friendships that we have to this day. Like, it's just, I can say that the friendship aspect of my life is absolutely amazing. Have no complaints. Like, I have the most beautiful friends. Like, God has really blessed both of us in that area. And I say this to say, me and Destiny, a lot of the things that God had been calling me and Destiny to do, we couldn't do until we got some new friends. Because I think there's also a point where when you have a certain group of friends, it's like you're scared to live a certain way. But then it's like when you do have friends around you that have the same morals as you, that have the same beliefs as you, that have the same values as you, it's like they encourage you to live a certain way. Even when you feel tempted, you have accountability partners around you. You have people around you that say, girl, do you really want to do this?
And even then, it's just in human nature that you don't want to feel different. And I know the word says, do not conform to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. But it's like a part of that renewing of your mind is getting yourself around a new circle. Is that your mind can't be renewed if you're around a group of people that make you feel weird for what you're doing. But whenever you get around a group of people that you can conform to, you want to conform to their behaviors because their behaviors are healthy. It literally changes it changes everything, and it changed everything for us because it wasn't weird to do what we were doing. Like around our other friends, it would be weird for us to be doing Bible studies and going to church every Sunday and Tuesday. Like that was weird. But now around our group of friends, it's like that's the norm. So it's like you almost feel weird if you're not doing that stuff. So it's like that's the importance of getting around a community, because humans are communal people. We have to be around people. And that's why I wanted to talk about isolation, but that's another video. But we have to be around other people because we naturally copy the behavior of the people around us. We become most like our close-knit group of friends. And so that's why it's so important to be around a healthy group of people, not just so they can hold you accountable, but also because you become like the people you're around. So yeah, that's just, I would say that's the number one most important thing. And practically the way you do this is we got in a good church. We got in a church and we started going to their youth and young adult nights, and that's where we met.
That's literally where we met most of them. It's like people make it a lot harder than it is. It's like you just have to learn how to understand sometimes it's hard finding those right communities, but especially when you're in college, I guarantee you have at least one church that has a young adult ministry,
a Bible study on
campus. You just got to start, and what we have to stop doing is stop looking for godly relationships outside of godly atmospheres.
Going to bars and thinking
you're not going to meet a godly friend at a bar. You're not going to meet your next godly friend at a party. You have to go in godly spaces to find those godly friends. I don't mean to sound holier than thou,
I'm not saying you can't.
Exactly.
But it's just
because a lot of our friends that are godly now, we started when we were going to parties and stuff together, but our relationship, God had enough grace to transform that relationship. It's not like if we would have stayed doing that, we would not be friends. Now God had to transform that relationship.
Sorry, we had to change locations. Our camera died and a little switcheroo, but yeah, we're gonna keep on going with point number 2.
So point number 2 that I had was flee from temptation / do not entertain tempting situations. It's almost like the Bible says, do not make provisions for the flesh. When I gave my life to God, it's almost like I forgot that there were still going to be tempting situations. It's like I forgot that, okay, now I'm going to have to set boundaries. Like that's what I had to learn.
Like your environment doesn't change.
Exactly.
It's just your mindset changes.
Exactly. I feel like it's self-explanatory, but it's not. I feel like a lot of people say it, but it's so hard to put it into action. Like, so for me, what I had to learn was, okay, now I have these new boundaries, now I have these new morals, now I have these new values that I've created for my life, but how do I put them into action? And for me, this was learning how to say no, and also learning to not go places, to not do things that even like brought me close to being tempted. And I feel like this is something that honestly goes in phases, because like how we are now, me and Destiny are mature enough to go to different places where we may be tempted, because we have that fruit now to where we've built up that self-control to where now we just, even if we're in certain environments, we just don't even think of doing certain things.
It's like second nature.
Exactly.
But it's like the Bible says, Jesus said, if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. If your eye causes you to lust, gouge it out. So it's like there are certain temptations where you'll have in different seasons of your life, and you have to make sure that you're not making provision for that temptation. Like specifically, we got into a lot of the situations that we dealt with that were leading us astray came from parties and doing things that some people may
being in sinful environments,
and some people may think like it's okay. Like, and I personally, we've gotten to a point where we've realized that there's nothing wrong with partying in and of itself. It's just that there were too many temptations in that environment for us to be able to handle it.
Like I'll say, if your new goal is, okay, I don't want to drink again until I turn 21, because one thing I want to always do is be honest. For me and Destiny, it's not we don't believe that drinking is a sin. We believe getting drunk is a sin. And we also believe that the word says to follow the law of the land. So our law of the land says that we cannot drink until we're 21. So we set a goal that we are not going to take another sip of alcohol until we turn 21. And we stood on that. And that's pretty much what we stand on. And I think it's really, that's one of those things that's kind of like relative. That's based on your own, that's your own conviction. But our conviction is that we weren't going to drink again until we turned 21. So, but let's say you're in college and you're not 21 yet, and you've really set the boundary of, okay, I don't want to drink again until I turn 21. So try not to put yourself in places where other people will be drinking. I know it's going to be hard for a while, but there are other fun things that you can do with your friends that don't revolve around drinking. And this goes back to building the right community. So you don't have that temptation around you where other people around you are doing those things. But let's say like you have that boundary, just try not to go to parties again until you turn 21. Like, it's going to be hard, but when you're trying to reach that goal, you have to set boundaries in place. For me personally, a goal of mine since I have given my life to Christ is I want to abstain until I get married. And so a big thing for me was I had to basically not entertain any situation that I knew was going to make me stray away from that. If I got a text past 10 p.m., I was not going, and I'm still not going. There are even some guys that I know I could entertain, but I know they're going to lead me down a path I don't want to go down. I know they're going to lead me down a path of lust. I know they're just not right for me. And whereas other girls would maybe give those guys a chance, I know that I'm gonna give in every time with that type of guy. So I have to learn to not entertain those types of guys, because I knew I was going every time. In my flesh, I'm going, but like I can't entertain that. Like I literally had to set those boundaries to where I say, I'm not doing this, I'm not going out with a guy during the night, I'm only going out with him in public places. Like you have to, when you have those boundaries, you have to set like different standards.
And I feel like a big part of that is being real with yourself and knowing what you struggle with, because everyone has different struggles.
Exactly.
And so sometimes you may hear other people say, like, say you're trying to wait till marriage, you hear other people who waited till marriage say, oh, we slept in the same bed and we didn't have any issue and da-da-da-da. Well, if you know that sexual immorality is something that you struggle with, sleeping in the same bed as your boyfriend just may not be a good idea. And so it's just learning how to be real with yourself. And that's the reason why Paul talks about personal convictions and how we each have things that we are personally convicted about, because we're each on our personal journey with Christ. And so
I also want to touch on this, because this is kind of outside of the subject, but it's not. Really, I think as Christians, especially young Christians, we have to learn more about personal conviction. Because I see a lot of people online telling people to do things that may only work for them. Just because something worked for you does not mean it will work for everyone. Just because you have decided that you're not gonna go to places where people may be drinking and people may be smoking because that was an issue for you doesn't mean you should get online and condemn other Christians for being in those same spaces, because maybe they don't struggle with those things. Really lean on your personal conviction and trust what God is telling you to do. And we're just giving you guys our experience, but if something different may work for you, lean on that. You just have to trust what God is telling you. Point number 3 I have is kind of going from point 2, but it's set those boundaries and stand on business. And also the biggest part is express those boundaries to the people around you, because I think that was another big thing for me. Was I was going into a time where I was setting boundaries, I was setting new values and and standards for myself, but I wasn't expressing those to the people around me. So there were different boys that I may have entertained in the past, or different friends that I may have had in the past, and they didn't know that I had these new boundaries set because I didn't express them. Like, I literally had to get to a point where I told them, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. Hey, I'm not gonna go to these certain places anymore. And guess what? I stood on that, because a lot of people can say, oh, I'm not doing this anymore, but you're still going every time.
Right.
You have to stand on that. Like, you have to stand on business. And there will be a while when people will think you're a stick in the mud.
Yeah.
There will be a while when people do think you're a party pooper. But guess what? After a while, people are going to really just see you as the girl that stands on business. And I'd much rather be seen as the girl that stands on business rather than the girl that's going every time. Like,
because what we've realized is that people respect you more. And
exactly.
I feel like a lot of girls, this is no knock to my woman. Obviously, I'm a woman.
Yeah.
But a lot of us complain about not being respected by men, but we're not standing on our own morals and values. So you can't expect, one thing that I hate is when people have boundaries and have expectations for people that they're not communicating.
Exactly.
You have to communicate. And this is just basic life one-on-one. You have to 101. You have to communicate what you're expecting out of people. And so, like, I can understand how a guy who's a worldly guy, obviously I don't think you should be messing with worldly guys anyways, but who's a worldly guy, and you're trying to tell him that you're trying to wait, you're in a situation where you're in an intimate moment with him, and then you want to pop out that you're waiting till marriage.
Exactly.
That's like blind. That's like very blindsiding.
Literally.
Like, that's kind of like you're manipulating them a little bit.
You can't blame the boy for having a bad reaction, because up until then, I keep on saying this, but up until then, you made it seem like you were going. And then out of nowhere, you say, oh, I don't want to do this.
Right. That's
like,
wrong.
You have to, and like a big thing for me too, going back to number 2, like a big part of me, not making provisions for the flesh was, if I was going to, even now, if I am going to entertain a boy, I immediately tell them, hey, I'm abstaining till marriage. If you're not okay with that, you can leave. Because I think a big thing also for girls in our generation is we get so heartbroken because we don't know how to set boundaries up front and stand on those. So we try to entertain a boy and say, oh, hopefully he doesn't leave me or reject me when I tell him that I'm abstaining. You could protect yourself.
Let yourself get to a point where you're emotionally connected to him until you knew that he also was abstaining. Like, you shouldn't have even let yourself get to that point.
Exactly. Like, I have protected myself from so much heartbreak because I've learned how to tell people what my boundaries and my standards are up front. Like, let's say I'm going on a first date. A lot of people don't agree with this, but this is just something I do. You could disagree with me if you want, but something I do. Like, if I'm going on a first date or talking to a boy, getting to know a boy, one of our first conversations will be that I'm abstaining. That will be one of our first conversations, because a lot of people say, like, oh, I don't want to make it that deep that quick. For me, I don't date just to, if you're dating just to date, okay, just get to know the person. But if a lot of us are doing like we say we do, if we're dating for marriage, you are literally dating that person because they're a prospect they're a husband. Like, they're a prospect of a husband? Is that
prospect?
They're a husband prospect.
Future
prospect. They're a future prospect. So of course I'm gonna tell this future prospect that I'm abstaining, and if they don't agree with it, okay, you had a first date and that's it. I have no connection to you whatsoever.
You have to tell people your boundaries before you get to a point where it's too late.
Exactly.
Before you get to a point where you're going to end up butthurt and have a sinking feeling in your stomach.
Exactly.
Because he rejected you, but you weren't upfront with your morals and values and your boundaries.
Or we even, I keep on touching on things from point 2, but they kind of, point 2 and point 3 really correlate. But it's like, even, we have had friends in the past who have, and they've grown out of this, thankfully, but we've had friends in the past who they set the boundary that they wanted to abstain till marriage, but they were still sleeping in the same bed every night, and they would always come to us and say, oh guys, I feel so bad because I'm just not sticking to my word. I keep on falling into sin. And I remember one day we're like, okay, are you still sleeping in the same bed as him every night? She's like, yeah. And we're like, okay,
that might be the issue.
Exactly. And I don't want to sit here and call people that do that stupid, because it's like sometimes you're just not aware of how your actions are affecting you. Sometimes you're just not aware. But I really challenge all of you guys to look back on your life and analyze your life and think about the boundaries that you have set that you're not really sticking to, and then think about what behavior, what things you are doing that are leading you into that temptation every time. Like, you really, there's a second where you just have to sit back and pause and be like, okay, I keep on falling into the sin because I keep on making provision for this sin. But one thing I did want to add to this, we had just recently, like this weekend, came to the revelation that fun is not sin.
It's not.
And I feel like this is something that a lot of new Christians, especially new Christians, need to learn, because we go through this phase where we're trying to become this better person. We're trying to take our walk with God serious. And sometimes that does involve you being very strict on yourself. And not making room for your flesh, like we said earlier. And I also want to say, like, sometimes that season is necessary. Like, me and Destiny went through that season where we couldn't go to parties. Exactly.
We couldn't do anything.
And we were very strict.
Yeah, we were very strict, and that served its purpose. But I think you have to get to a point where you realize that having fun is not sin, having hobbies are not sin, and not everything has to be going on Bible studies and going to church to have fun. Sometimes you can do things that are just genuinely fun to you and that you just enjoy doing. I just want to remind y'all that having fun is not sin.
It's not.
Don't be beating down on yourself so much. You can still enjoy your young life as a young Christian.